Mathura had been living with her brother Gama. Both of them worked as laborers to earn a living. A complaint was being lodged by Gama alleging that Mathura had been kidnapped by Mathura's employer Nunshi and her family, including her nephew Ashok. At the direction of the head constable Baburao, the statements of Ashok and Mathura were recorded. Around 10:30 p.m., all the persons were asked to leave with a direction to Mathura's brother to bring forth evidence regarding the victim's age. While all of them left, Mathura was asked by the appellants to wait at the police station, and immediately thereafter, Ganpat and Tukaram allegedly raped and molested her on the premises.
After listening to the situation that was read out to you, what first impression of the case did you form?
If this ever went to court, of course it went to court, but it should have been a straightforward sentencing. They should have either got a life imprisonment or they should have been hanged.
I just think trying to find the evidence for a person's age when they're reporting a crime shouldn't be the first criteria.
And the fact that I was unaware of this case just makes me realize that how we don't speak much about any of these extreme cases in general, how this was like brushed under the carpet. So I didn't know this case existed until we spoke about it in class the other day. And then it's just heartbreaking to listen to such kind of stories.
This was in 1978, right?
1972.
72. Yeah, I'm not very surprised. Like, I want to be surprised, but these things happen on such a regular basis, even now. So it's just disappointing more than surprising, and we're just used to it at this point.
Yeah, I think even I'm not really surprised that this happened.
Well, I can think of the police impunity. The audacity of the state police, to rape a woman whose family members are waiting outside the police station. So it shows the audacity and the level of impunity in the sense that how we can take for granted the powerless in this country.
In this country, considering current day media coverage for rape cases, how do you think Indian media reacted to one of India's most significant rape cases?
I think there wasn't enough coverage, and the way they covered it later, initially there wasn't, and then they covered it in such a terrifying manner that her entire life was ruined. Because after this case, as I've learned, that they conceal the real name of any rape survivor, because otherwise how do they proceed with their lives if their names are plastered in every possible media outlet? How do they try to rebuild themselves and go on and survive, like move on from what they've survived?
I mean, considering that it was in 1972, I think that they slut-shamed her, and yeah, and
I think they must have they must have said it's her fault, and
I think they would have questioned her honor as well, because if a woman of questionable character is involved in the incident, that sort of puts her in a worse off position when people are questioning her.
Well, again, if I have to be honest, I am not familiar with the media coverage of this particular case because it was quite some time back, so I do not really know how the media covered this particular case. But then there are other cases which, more recent cases which were like the Nirbhaya case and all, which I'm familiar with how the media was covering it, but not this particular case.
I think 1970s Indian media, I don't even want to go there. Like, it would have been bad because even in recent years, it's still pretty bad. That would have been insensitive, intrusive,
and the media even today, it's all about the TRP. It's all about justifying both sides and stuff like that, but they don't really care. They're not empathetic. It's all about themselves.
They would have definitely twisted the story.
The Indian media was not even the first to report the incident. The Dawn newspaper in Pakistan was the first media outlet to mention the rape.
Why am I not surprised?
I did not know that.
And the fact that it took another country reporting it for our country to begin reporting it shows the terrifying state of affairs that we were in.
Wow.
And then they were like forced to report it because, again, India, Pakistan, politics.
Yeah.
That tells a lot about, and also that I can't even imagine that these two policemen were acquitted by court initially, right? On the premise that the woman was already having sexual intercourse, so she might have already given some kind of hint, quote unquote, hint to these two policemen to have a physical encounter. So I'm not even surprised that if we can be so patriarchal in our judicial system, what our media would be, because the people who are running media or any of these public institutions, they are not very different from each other. It's the same set of people almost with a similar mindset who are running these institutions. So I'm not very surprised that it was reported by a Pakistani newspaper. And it's also my ignorance to an extent that I'm not familiar with the case, especially the media coverage of the case. Yes, and also to put things in context, I think the kind of electronic media coverage today we have, or citizens report we have today, I think those things were not present at that time. So that also we have to put that in context to an extent. But that's an interesting point.
We are now going to read out an excerpt of an open letter written by 4 law professors, Upendra Bakshi, Raghunath Kelkar, Lotika Sarkar, and Vasudha Dhagamwar, sent to Chief Justice of India after the Supreme Court of India reversed the verdict given by the Bombay High Court, which sentenced both accused to rigorous imprisonment, Tukaram for 1 year and Ganpat for 5.
The court, under your leadership, has taken great strides for civil liberties in cases involving affluent urban women. Must illiterate, labouring, politically mute Mathuras of India be continually condemned to their pre-constitutional Indian fate? Is the taboo against premarital sex so strong as to provide a license to the Indian police to rape young girls? What more can we say? We can only appeal, in conclusion, to have the case reheard as an unusual situation by a larger bench and, if necessary, by even the full court. This may appear to your lordship as a startlingly unconventional and even a naive suggestion, but nothing short of protection of human rights and constitutionalism is at stake.
Imagine if you were in the position of authority and you received this letter. How would you have reacted?
I would have definitely considered it.
I don't know, I just don't have any words right now.
I would have reheard the case, but I wouldn't have made the mistake in the first place.
Well, you mean if I were, in the position of judicial power in some ways to effect change? Well, if I were, probably I would have taken a more judicially activist position, where I would have, stepped in and I would have said that probably this judgment is entirely wrong. Suppose I'm on the bench of the Supreme Court, which is hearing it. Suppose I'm just to say theoretically. Well, I would have stepped in and I would have said that this judgment reeks of patriarchy, misogyny, and a very, very regressive attitude, where women's prior sexual encounter is taken into account to determine her consent, which should never be the case, because every sexual encounter, whether it's consensual or non-consensual, should be determined by that encounter alone, and no encounter prior or after. So, of course, I would have stepped in, and I would have, if I were part of the bench, I would also relook at the case, and I would have read what these professors actually have written very closely, because they are all legal experts after all. So due diligence would be paid, or I would have actually paid due diligence, and I would have seen how the victim could have gotten justice despite what she had to go through.
I mean, I would have recommended it to a higher bench, but to be very honest, whether or not that higher bench would have given a verdict that would have, suited the girl and was for the victim is extremely questionable.
In contrast to the answers given, the then Chief Justice of the Indian Supreme Court ignored the open letter.
This makes me so angry. Like, it genuinely makes me so angry.
It's just disgust for the whole system, the so-called justice system.
Well, I'm not surprised, Also, I would again say, as I said before, we also, when was the case actually? In 1972, right? Yeah, I'd forgotten the year. But I knew it's quite an old case. Now, I would put things in context a little bit. If you see, our courts were not the most, gender-friendly places and spaces those days. And, we say often that justice system should never be colored by social morality, but by and large, it's social morality which also determines the justice system in this country, right? So if it's a patriarchal society, you would often get patriarchal, misogynistic kind of, judgments as well.
Considering it was like in the 70s, again, I'm not really surprised because I don't think sexual assault was given a lot of importance back then. And I think it's only recently, especially after the Nirbhaya case and everything, that sexual assault has been given more importance.
Ignored.
A victim in these circumstances, who could she have asked for help?
I mean, at the end of the day, if you can't go to the court of law and you can't, if they aren't helping you out, I personally don't know any situation that would involve the law, at least.
It felt like everyone was against her. Literally everyone was against her. Like, she would have felt so helpless at that time.
It just feels like something so unimaginable happens to someone from, like, with no resources whatsoever, and when the whole country finds out about it and there's no support from the justice system itself, it's so unimaginable.
When the system violated her, who will she ask for help? Showing that we moved nowhere in the time from independence to here.
I feel like we haven't moved at all, to be honest.